Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. I think it's okay. Alvin, testing 1 2. Testing 1 2.
casa nu știu unde dacă am singura mie, da?
You in class.
That's what I'll do.
Oh God.
Yo, I gonna come take the camera over there, alright?
No, this isn't my camera. That's my camera over there.
Larry just do it. Then I come back out of boom. Larry got on that camera, baby. Look at this. Oh, wait, I'm the camera straight. Straight up. Anyway, I got Mac and Auto, right? I don't know if look.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this moment, I would like to request that you take your seats. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this ceremonial meeting on the occasion of the opening of the new parliamentary year that is about to commence. Allow me to make some announcements to ensure an orderly exit from the hall by all present once the meeting is closed. Right before the end of the meeting, His Excellency the Governor and his entourage will be escorted by the Reception and Departure Committee to the conference room. Upon the return of the committee to the hall, the President of Parliament will close the meeting. The President of Parliament and the Prime Minister will then leave the hall, accompanied by the Secretary General of Parliament and the Secretary General of the Council of Ministers, to the conference room. This will be followed by the dignitaries representing the French side of the island. After that, members of Parliament, ministers, and the remainder guests will leave the hall to make their way to the Saraswati Square. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the entrance of the Council of Ministers. The Prime Minister of St. Maarten, the Honorable Silveria E. Jacobs, accompanied by the Secretary General of the Council of Ministers. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the entrance of the President of Parliament. The President of Parliament, the Honorable Grisha S. Heiliger Maarten.
Members of Parliament, support staff, radio listeners, TV viewers, online viewers, members of the media, a pleasant good morning. We've established a quorum of 14 members. I open this solemn meeting, which has been convened to open the Parliamentary year 2022-2023 as prescribed by our Constitution in Article 46, Paragraph 2, which states that the parliamentary year begins on the second Tuesday of September with a speech by or on behalf of the Governor of the policies of the government in a meeting convened so that by the end by the Parliament. Please stand for a moment of silence. I've received notice of absence from MP Christophe Emmanuel. For this special occasion, we have several invitees. I would like to first welcome our members of Parliament and our ministers of the Council of Ministers, the Honorable Vice President of the Court of Justice, the Honorable President of the Constitution of Court, the Honorable First Vice President of the Collectivité, Vice Chair Lady of the Council of Advice, Chairman of the General Audit Chamber, Ombudsman, Chairperson of the Social Economic Council, Chairperson of the Central Voting Bureau, Chairperson of the Corporate Governance Council, Chief Public Prosecutor, Secretary General of the Council of Ministers, Secretary General of the Courts, Secretary General of the Council of Advice, Secretary General of the Audit Chamber, Secretary General of the Ombudsman, Secretary General of the Social Economic Council, Secretary General of the Integrity Chamber, Secretaries General to the Ministries of Government, Representative of the Netherlands in St. Maarten, Commander of the Military Detachment on St. Maarten, Director of the Cabinet of the Governor, Director St. Maarten of the Central Bank of Curaçao and St. Maarten, Representative of the Council of Maintenance of Law and Order, Secretary of the Council of Maintenance of Law and Order, Commander of the Voluntary Corps, VKS, Head of the Coast Guard of Support Station of St. Maarten, Director of Point Blanche Detention Center, Director of the National Recovery Program Bureau, Acting Head of the Department of the Legal Affairs and Legislation, President of the Youth Parliament, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I will now appoint the members of the Reception and Departure Committee. For this committee, I appoint MP Solange Duncan, MP Rayon Peterson, and MP Angelique Rameau. I will adjourn the meeting so that the members of the Reception and Departure Committee can proceed to the entrance of the Parliament building and wait at the stairs to receive and escort His Excellency the Governor and his entourage to the General Assembly Hall of Parliament. I hereby adjourn this meeting. This isn't open on time.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, come down. Ray, switch off for me. Let me switch it.
Sergeant-major Flori, commandant van de Erewacht. Meld de Erewacht gereed bij inspectie. Excellency, ik wil u uitnodigen voor het uitvoeren van een inspectie over de Erewacht. Erewacht! Zet af! Geweer! In orde van inspectie! Presenteert! Geweer! Ja. Hold! Right! Excellency, ik dank u voor deze uitvoering van deze inspectie. Erewacht! Zet af! Geweer! Op de plaats! Rust!
I herewith reopen the meeting. Please rise for the arrival of His Excellency the Governor. I welcome His Excellency the Governor and his entourage to this solemn meeting. I give the floor to His Excellency for his address to the Parliament. His Excellency.
Madam Chairlady, members of Parliament. Today, September 13th, 2022, we gather here in conformity with our constitutional obligation to open the new parliamentary year and present the government's agenda for the coming year. This recurring annual event on the second Tuesday of September marks the start of the new political year. It underscores the duties and responsibilities of Parliament and government within our parliamentary democracy. The new parliamentary year 2022-2023 is the 13th parliamentary year since the birth of our country on October 10th, 2010. And I have had the distinct privilege to have participated in all 13 in my capacity as Governor of St. Maarten. And today will be the last in that capacity for the opening of the new parliamentary year. It is my pleasure to congratulate all the parliamentarians and the people of St. Maarten with the opening of the new parliamentary year. It is at national moments like these that we come together as a people, one people, to reflect on our common objectives, common interests, and aspirations for a strong and united St. Maarten. Madam Chairlady, members of Parliament, the opening of this new parliamentary year comes on the heels of the 5th anniversary of Hurricane Irma, and 2.5 years since the start of the coronavirus pandemic. Two disasters which have severely eroded the economic and financial foundation of our country, and as a result, affected the lives and livelihoods of our people. The impact of these disasters will be felt for a long, long time to come. Too many persons have lost loved ones because of COVID-19. The health risks are ever present. The education of our children has been disrupted, and government's financial position has suffered, as reflected in the increase in the debt to GDP ratio from 43% in 2019 to an estimated 63% this year. The impact of these disasters reminds us, all of us, members of the coalition, members of the opposition, and government, of the need to work together to strengthen our country's social, economic, and financial foundation. With the COVID-19 pandemic transitioning into an endemic phase, life around the world is returning to normal, and the demand for travel is strong. As a result, the outlook for our economy is improving, and we are recovering some of the lost ground. It is expected that the economy will expand by 8% this year, and that it will grow further in 2023 by some 7.5%. These positive developments are, however, being dampened by increasing world inflation, fueled by a surge in global oil and commodity prices caused by supply chain disruptions and by the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Given our dependence on the import of oil and other commodities, inflation on St. Maarten is expected to increase to 6% this year. This increase in the cost of living is posing serious challenges, particularly for our elderly, our unemployed, and our low-income earners. Hurricane Irma, the COVID-19 pandemic, and now the global inflation crisis are reminders of our vulnerability to external shocks and the need to get our house in order to strengthen our country's social, economic, and financial foundation. Madam Chairlady, members of Parliament, the government, having taken these developments into consideration, has been working with the Netherlands through the World Bank Trust Fund and the country package reforms to improve our country's economic and financial resilience. Central to government's policy agenda for the coming year is to link and bring all ongoing projects, as mentioned in the country package, under the umbrella of the National Development Vision. Government is therefore currently planning an inclusive launch of the National Development Vision. This launch will ensure that all partners, internal and external, are included in the outcome. It ensures that policy measures are consistent within the context of our nation island. Noteworthy is that the first steps towards developing St. Maarten's National Development Plan under the current National Development Vision have been taken. The goal is to present the National Development Plan in the first part of 2023. This should improve St. Maarten's chances of anchoring a sustainable future. Important prerequisites for national development include, first, taking steps to have the data necessary for monitoring and evaluation, as well as to having the necessary structures in place to do so. And second, capacity building and strengthening of the public administration. Both, therefore, constitute major components of government's reforms as reflected in the implementation agenda. The results from the population census, which is scheduled to be completed this year, is expected to provide important data input for the National Development Plan. And capacity building is envisioned from a multi-pronged approach, namely strengthening of local expertise and technical assistance to support the development of the action points. Government is at the same time investing in its ICT infrastructure. From an ICT perspective, government will continue focusing on strengthening the organization's infrastructure, improving the cybersecurity environment, and digitizing business processes. In that regard, the emphasis for the remainder of 2022 and the start of 2023 will be on, one, improving disaster recovery and business continuity. Two, introducing additional security features, including a cyber security awareness program. And three, continued digitization to improve the efficiency of service delivery. Madam Chairlady, members of Parliament, capacity building must start with our children by offering quality learning opportunities in terms of education facilities and programs. The government is therefore working on the implementation of the $26.8 million Fostering Resilient Learning project funded by the Trust Fund at the World Bank. The grant agreement for this project was signed in June of this year, and the project is comprised of the following key components. One, rebuilding inclusive schools. Two, restoring library services. Three, strengthening of the management information system in education, culture, youth, and sports. Four, contingent emergency response. And five, the management of the project. The goals of the project are to foster data-driven decisions, monitor and enhance the education, culture, youth and sports services for schools, teachers, students, and citizens, support procedures that protect youth and children's rights with digitization and enhance the resilience within the sectors. Other priorities include working towards 1, the $7 million emergency recovery program for school repairs, which will be supplemented with funds for school gyms and sport facilities. 2, working towards the development of a more efficient, effective school busing service policy, including the fleet tracking system for student transportation. And 3, working towards the provision of computers for students and teachers and digital boards for all classrooms in public schools. In keeping with its capacity building agenda, government is committed to supporting opportunities for higher education, such as the Professional Development Program at the University of St. Maarten for teachers with dispensation. The program started with 21 participants in January of this year. It assists school boards in providing opportunities for teachers. It is government's policy to support its capacity building efforts with nation building activities. Government is therefore engaged in the development of policies as part of St. Maarten's obligations to international treaties on the registration and protection of tangible and intangible cultural heritage. Noteworthy in this regard is the ongoing work to establish and promote Philipsburg as a cultural capital. This endeavor is taking place in close collaboration with the creative industries as a viable supplement to the tourism industry, and thus helps develop our national orange economy. Intertwined with this undertaking is the aspiration to participate in the upcoming Curry Festa and bring Curry Festa to St. Maarten before 2030. Madam Chair Lady, members of Parliament, as we transition from the COVID-19 pandemic to normalcy, government is urging our population to remain vigilant. Vigilant as we face other global health risks, such as monkeypox and the resurgence of polio. Based on our experience with the COVID-19 pandemic, we can draw lessons for the future. Lessons regarding the importance of adhering to measures such as proper hygiene, wearing masks, and getting vaccinated. Through August 2022, some 28,463 persons have been vaccinated in the fight against COVID-19. Government hereby commends the entire population, and in particular, those persons who have been on the front line in the fight against COVID-19. In addition to the efforts to combat the COVID-19 pandemic and transition to normalcy, government is continuing to pursue steps to secure and improve the provision of public health services to the population. These steps include 1, the development of a non-communicable disease plan to prevent and control highly prevalent diseases on St. Maarten, such as diabetes and cardiovascular diseases. This plan lays the groundwork for many of the projects that will be rolled out in the future. 2, the finalization of the first phase of new legislation regarding the pharmaceutical cost containment program to reduce the cost of medication in St. Maarten. 3, the recent increase in the wage limit under the National Ordinance Health and Accident Insurance to 120,000 guilders to improve the financial viability of the healthcare funds. And for the endorsement of the 1,000 Smiles St. Maarten pilot project initiated by the St. Maarten Development Fund to provide free dental service to at least 1,000 persons who have limited resources. In addition, government is facilitating healthcare providers with their efforts to develop new healthcare facilities and programs. Noteworthy in this regard are, first, the ongoing construction of the new St. Maarten General Hospital, of which the foundation and retaining wall have been completed. Second, the recently established and government-endorsed Dutch Caribbean Hospital Alliance between hospitals of the Dutch Caribbean. The alliance will allow the hospitals within the kingdom to provide affordable basic health care, combined procurement for medication and equipment, sharing of specialized medical professionals, and training of medical personnel to give the best quality of care. And third, the plans for the construction of a new state-of-the-art facility in St. John's Estate to meet the mental health care needs of the population. Government has, as a result, helped to secure the approval of the funding for the project from the World Bank Trust Fund. In the area of social affairs, government is committed to strengthening and expanding the safety nets available for our vulnerable population. Important policy initiatives are, among others, the launch of a survey on social and economic conditions, the so-called socioeconomic needs assessment, to gather information which will be used for the planning and development of policies. Also, the relaunch of the 2017 Home Repair Program, which targets the most vulnerable groups in our community who do not have the means to repair their homes, such as the elderly, single parents, and the 11.2% unemployed. Also, the establishment of a commercial kitchen to feed school children and the vulnerable population. And the commissioning of the official policy through legislation and procedures to strengthen government's response to combat domestic violence, child abuse, and gender-based violence. In addition, faced with the financial constraints of government, and given the increase in the cost of living, government recently rolled out its Max Price program to give much-needed relief to the community by ensuring that 72 of the basic goods remain at a reasonable price. For a successful Max Price system, data has been collected from importers and retailers on costs to ensure prices remain reasonable for the consumer and that businesses do not operate at a loss. Madam Chairlady, members of Parliament, to be effective, government social policy must be supported by initiatives that foster a healthy and secure living environment for the population. The environment of our island does not only reflect how we live, but also contributes to our overall well-being. Government's core goal and vision for 2022-2023 is to develop a suitable legislative and regulatory framework for proper environmental and infrastructure management with institutional systems to respond to and mitigate the effects of climate change. To realize its objectives, government has completed the updating of the building code in 2021. The code was prepared under the project Building Back Better with the assistance of the international chapter of the Association of Dutch Municipalities. It is aimed at strengthening the resilience of our built environment to withstand stronger hurricanes and other natural disasters. The new building code is scheduled to go into effect following an educational trajectory for the relevant stakeholders planned for the fourth quarter of this year. In the meantime, government has continued with major renovation work to severely damaged social housing in Belvedere. This is part of the emergency recovery project under the Dutch Finance Trust Fund at the World Bank. In total, some 64 apartment units in the 6 residential towers of the St. Maarten Housing Development Foundation are being renovated. Government is also updating our country's environmental standards. With the update, a foundation will be laid for pursuing policies to protect and improve the quality of our living environment. By implementing environmental standards, government, companies, and residents will know what is expected of them in terms of protecting the environment and dealing with the environment in a safe and sustainable manner. Noteworthy in this regard is the interministerial approach to address and resolve the ongoing sewage septic issues that have been plaguing members of our community for many years. Our marine and coastal resources also require a sustainable management approach. Government is therefore executing a coastal resilience needs assessment project until June of next year through the so-called Resilience, Sustainable Energy, and Marine Biodiversity Program. The specific objectives of the project are to enhance the capacity of government for evidence-based policy development and to increase the knowledge and willingness of the public to engage in sustainable practices. In addition, government continues to work on improving the management of the landfill. The preparation works for the establishment of the temporary debris sorting and recovery facility is in the final stages. With the establishment of the facility, the process can begin to sort, reduce, and remove the Irma debris site. After lengthy consultations and discussions with all stakeholders, the draft resettlement action plan for the community living in the area was finalized in the first quarter of 2022. Madam Chair Lady, members of Parliament, providing for a safe and secure living environment through the maintenance of the rule of law is an essential component of government's policy agenda. Government is, as a result, committed to making structural improvements in law enforcement. Important priorities include, first, the ongoing work to complete legislation regulating the legal position of the personnel in the justice chain in general and of the police in particular. Second, the implementation of an educational program for all law enforcement personnel to strengthen the justice chain. To oversee and coordinate this process, government has employed a course coordinator. The objective is to establish the Law Enforcement Institute of St. Maarten. Noteworthy is the successful completion of 4 graduation ceremonies and 1 inauguration ceremony at KPSM, Customs, and the Point Blanche Prison and House of Detention from May of last year to July of this year, despite the challenges of COVID-19. And third, the ongoing investments in the Point Blanche House of Detention to upgrade the facilities. Important progress has been made during 2021-2022 under the guidance of the new prison director and prison management team, and with the support of a program manager financed by the Dutch government. At the same time, significant steps have been taken in the preparations for the construction of a new prison. Madam Chair Lady, members of Parliament, to support government's policy agenda, it is imperative that the economy produces the required revenues. In the post-COVID-19 context, the focus of government has been to stimulate the economy by attracting investors, by supporting small businesses, and through tourism recovery. Our economy remains highly dependent on tourism. Attracting tourists, therefore, continues to be the primary goal of government's economic agenda for 2022 and beyond. The emphasis for 2022 will be on diversification of tourist products, including a focus on the market for meeting incentives, conferences, and exhibitions, sports tourism, and adventure tourism. These initiatives are supplemented by aggressive marketing and collaboration with airline industry partners to develop a 6-year airline route development plan. In line with the overarching strategy for increasing tourism arrivals, government will continue its efforts to expand options for tourists and to improve visitors' experience. Opportunities in that regard include, first, the completion of the reconstruction of the airport's terminal building as a top priority. Second, the further enhancement of the home porting service. And third, the beautification and cleanup of the Philipsburg area. Madam Chair Lady, members of Parliament, to finance its policy agenda as envisioned in its National Development Vision, it is imperative that government takes steps to raise the necessary funds and to put the country on a financially more solid foundation. As a result of Hurricane Irma and the COVID-19 pandemic, government has been and continues to be cash strapped. In 2022, the approved budget deficit amounted to 124 million guilders. Meanwhile, the multi-annual forecasts project budget deficits through 2027. Government has, as a result, relied heavily on Dutch financing through the trust fund at the World Bank to fund several economic recovery projects and on liquidity loans to cover the budget shortfalls. Whereas the government did not require liquidity support in the first half of 2022 due to the positive economic developments, liquidity support of approximately 50 million is foreseen for the second half of this year. Government is therefore working on making our country more financially strong and economically resilient. This is being pursued by improving, standardizing, streamlining, and automating the financial processes to provide the people of St. Maarten with more accurate and relevant information. Given our country's financial situation, we must realize the urgency to better control our finances and the imperative of modernizing our tax legislation aimed at generating more revenues. Essential in this regard is that government has developed its roadmap to financial management. Important initiatives are: 1, the implementation of tax reforms to generate more revenues. 2, the measures taken to eliminate the backlog in the publication of the annual accounts. And 3, the steps to improve the budget process aimed at timely delivery of the budget. These steps also include the implementation of a policy-based budget to ensure alignment with the national development vision. This allows for government to prioritize and sequence its policy actions to match available funding while seeking ways to generate or attract additional funds. Madam Chairlady, members of Parliament, 5 years after Hurricane Irma and 2.5 years since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, our economy is starting to show signs, positive signs. A lot, however, remains to be done. The government is committed to continue to work closely with the Netherlands, the World Bank, Parliament, businesses, and the people of St. Maarten to speed up the urgently needed recovery and resilience efforts and reforms to return St. Maarten to its position as a beacon of prosperity in the region. Madam Chairlady, members of Parliament, together with government, you have requested the people of our beautiful, unique nation island to trust you with the management and supervision of their affairs. And you have pledged to always dedicate yourselves to foster the well-being of the people of St. Maarten. As we look to the future and the challenges ahead, it is therefore imperative that government and Parliament engage in meaningful, efficient dialogue and effective decision-making in the interest of our people and country. You are, in that regard, reminded that if you do not do so, who who do you expect to do it? You have thus been entrusted with the profound responsibility to serve the public interest on behalf of all St. Martiners. It is your task and your responsibility. I hope you step up to the plate and do so. Madam Chair Lady, members of Parliament, in this new parliamentary year, government will therefore present you with various legislative initiatives towards the execution of its plans and realization of its objectives. As representatives of the people of St. Maarten, government looks forward to your participation and your support to serve the public interest on behalf of the people of St. Maarten. Madam Chair Lady, members of Parliament, thus, as you deliberate and decide on the issues that will come before you in the period ahead, I wish you much wisdom, strength, and God's speed. Thank you. God bless you. And may God bless our beloved St. Maarten and protect its coast. Thank you.
I thank His Excellency for his governor's address. And with this, distinguished guests, I declare the parliamentary year 2022-2023 officially open. I would like to ask the reception and departure committee to accompany His Excellency the Governor and his entourage to the conference room. Please rise for the exit of the Governor. I would like to thank the Reception and Departure Committee for the splendid execution of their task. You are herewith discharged of your duties. Members of Parliament, ministers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your presence at this meeting for the opening of parliamentary year 2022-2023, and I herewith close this meeting.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated as the President of Parliament and Prime Minister, accompanied by the Secretary General of Parliament and the Secretary General of the Council of Ministers, exit the hall. The dignitaries of the French side will now also exit the hall and make their way to the conference room. I would like to invite members of Parliament to also leave the hall. The Council of Ministers, you may now also exit the hall. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. You may now also exit the hall and make your way outside of the building to the Saraswati Square to watch the parade.
want this or float pass? Okay, right now they're gonna start the cars gonna start to come. Oh yeah? Okay. I lock it here.